Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Liverpool defeating AC Milan 3-1. We'll cover Bayern Munich being able to get 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb. We'll discuss Real Madrid beating Stuttgart with late goals from Rudiger and Endrick. We'll discuss City taking on Inter Milan tomorrow. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, or I'll be giving you my reaction to some of the top headlines going on in the football world. If you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful. We thrive on your energy and insight. Whether it's a quick comment, a question, or an opinion, you just have to share. Don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $sign at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the GSMCpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off though with Liverpool, the big game of the day. Liverpool going away to AC Milan at the San Siro and getting the 3-1 victory. This was a very interesting game in the fact that Liverpool has had a very successful start to their season. AC Milan not as much. With the new manager coming in, both new managers have had different upbringings to start off their managerial career at their respective clubs. When you compare Fonseca's start at AC Milan compared to Arne Slot's start at Liverpool, but despite AC Milan having a bad start to the season, Liverpool having a really good start, they're both coming off opposite sort of recent games, with Liverpool having that disappointing loss to Nottingham Forest, and AC Milan getting that 4-0 win over Venezia, where they got rid of the game in the first half. And it started off early on. We thought, maybe it's the same old for Liverpool. Maybe they were going a hole, and we saw a high-flying AC Milan that were able to get a quick opportunity on the break, take advantage of space that they find, have a 3-on-2. Pulisic takes his space and he fires it in. This is a Pulisic playing his best football that he's played probably in his career, and he took that goal really, really well. Really took the space. Konate didn't really commit there, worrying about the runs that was coming. With Morata in the box. Was it Morata? No, it was not Morata actually. I believe Leao was on the back post, and it was Reinders who was making a run from midfield in a counter-attack situation. Konate didn't really want to bite and completely commit to Pulisic because he didn't want to leave the space to Reinders to get an easy ball played in. So Pulisic just take his space, and from a pretty tight angle, he's able to finish it off. And you're thinking, wow, Liverpool having their first disappointing result of the season, maybe this is, the screws loosening it up a little bit in Liverpool. They look very vulnerable, a lot of space provided, but I have to say the response was absolutely magnificent. They played really, really good football. They got it forward. They moved the ball a lot faster. They weren't able to score right away. They did have opportunities though. Salah, he had a brilliant opportunity, strikes off the post, a great play. And Liverpool overall, they were able to create a lot, and they were able to, they won a good opportunity on a set piece. Right outside the box, and then with the ability that Trent Alexander-Arnold has and his set piece ability, he plays in a amazing ball, and Konate is able to head it home. I do have to say, with the ball, I always, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and look, it's a lot of congestion, so it's really difficult for Mike Mignon to make. It's sort of similar to the Vicario situation for Tottenham when Tottenham took on Arsenal in this North London derby, where the corner was played in the 6 yard box. I think this one is a little bit different in the fact that yes, it's not really a corner; it's a short free kick, but how lofted the ball is. There's a lot of time that Mike Mignon has in terms of the pace on the ball and how lofted it is for him to make a play on it. Now it's difficult. It's difficult because the ball is lofted and play high, and it's a really, really good ball. But anytime, in my opinion, the ball gets played in the 6 yard box and it doesn't really have any real pace on it as well in the cross, the goalkeeper, I think the goalkeeper has to be a little bit more reactive. He's a little late coming off of his line, doesn't really sense it, doesn't really go full of force right away, doesn't detect it early enough. He comes a little bit too late. He can't get on the end of it. It's a really good ball. AC Milan don't do a good job of marking him. Konate does have some real pace. He's able to get there right before Magnan, and he heads it into the back of the net. And just like that, it's 1-1 Liverpool. And it was a deserved response from Liverpool because they played really, really well. They moved the ball quickly. They got numbers forward. We saw a good pattern, against Nottingham Forest. It was a little bit slow. This was not. We saw a really good high-flying Liverpool team that had a really good response as well. And, this was needed for them because, in the last game or so, they really did struggle to, get a goal from open play, and set pieces was always a way that that could sort of bail them out, and that's what bailed them out in the first half after going down to they're going down to AC Milan early. Because look, Liverpool created a lot of opportunities. They played in really, really good. They had real cutting edge, but Salah hit the post. Jota had a really good opportunity or McAllister actually had a really good opportunity. Hits the side netting. Really should have done better there. Salah had another opportunity, but in terms of open play, and then Salah also hits the post the second time as well. They were getting very, very unlucky. So, so it was vital for them to take advantage of the opportunities and set pieces when they come, in which they get their second goal in the first half, and it's another set piece opportunity. Upamecano taking advantage of his height, his ability. The second comes from Virgil van Dijk. And again, it's a corner kick played into the 6 yard box. Now this one, this one is a little bit more difficult for Mike Mignon because it is the ball is played in pace. But in my opinion, in Mike Mignon, he did suffer an injury later on in this game, and he left the game in tears. So, that's not a delicate situation there. But in my opinion, with the balls played in the 6 yard box, you have to have a better attempt at it. And I didn't think he didn't make a good enough, especially on the first one. The second one is a little bit difficult because the ball is played in with pace. So I'm not really blaming him there as much. But 2 goals for Liverpool, and it was much deserved too, despite them both coming on set pieces. There was no real arguing. I have to say the set piece defending, by the way, on that second goal was a little bit shocking. A little bit shoved from Van Dijk to get his initial space, but then the ball doesn't get attacked by any Milan player, and that's the thing with this sort of zonal defending. You don't get much sort of room to attack the ball, and if a player can find the right spaces in the zone, it's really hard to defend, and you suddenly go from 1-0 up to 2-1 down on 2 set piece opportunities. And obviously, 2 set piece opportunities, yes, that's how they got their first 2 goals. But, it's not a luck sort of set piece opportunity. This is a team that they outplayed AC Milan after that opening goal. They moved the ball really, really well. The entire game, they played They played with good energy levels. They got numbers forward. They got runners in behind. Ryan Gravenberg did a good job with McAllister doing the job defensively and springing out balls to start off attacks. The whole team was fluid, and they had more cutting edge and played with more energy than they did against Nottingham Forest. And they really could have made it, 4-5, to be honest. It really was not a 3-1 game. They were by far the superior team. And then it eventually gets capped off, after a few opportunities by Jota and Salah. Eventually the game gets capped off in transition. You see the dynamism of Liverpool, how, you lose the ball in the wrong area to Liverpool, then you can be in serious trouble with how dynamic they are in their attack. And it's Szoboszlai that's able to get on the end of a Cody Gakpo delivery, in which I thought Cody Gakpo was one of the players of the game. I thought he was absolutely brilliant playing in there. Szoboszlai takes it home, and it's 3-1 Liverpool, and made the sort of perfect response for that disappointing result they had at against Nottingham Forest. And for AC Milan, the disappointment of the start of the season does continue. And I have to say, losing to Liverpool is not the worst thing in the world, but the performance at home as well at the San Siro, in my opinion, it should have really been 5 or 6. I thought Liverpool had so many opportunities, and AC Milan looked so vulnerable defensively, and looked so vulnerable on the break as well. They just conceded way too many chances, and on top of that, losing Mike Mignon, who is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. AC Milan, I have to say, this is a really rough start for Paulo Fonseca, and we know what they're, in Serie A, they're 2 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. It's not a good start for AC Milan, and a response is needed. They need to find, they need to, first of all, tidy it up defensively. Defensively, they give up far too many opportunities. They need to, close up the spaces and overall defend as a unit better. And then, offensively, there's quality there, and they got players that they can play in transition with Pulisic and Morata. But if you're conceding all these opportunities, you're not going to be able to make it up with the quick counterattack of the ability to have players like Rafael Leao. So they need to tidy it up defensively. As far as Liverpool, this is a really good win for them. Good way to respond from that Nottingham Forest game. You were able to, get some rest for Andrew Robertson, for Luis Diaz. You were able to get Chiesa his first minutes of the season as well. Overall, a great day for Arne Slot, and a good response for them as they move on. And they have they actually don't have a game till Liverpool move on to take on, who did they play this weekend? They play Bournemouth at Anfield this weekend. While AC Milan, they have a big derby game coming up, the Milan derby, where they'll be taking on Inter Milan this Sunday, which is interesting because there's a lot of teams that are, Arsenal are going to have to take on City as well afterwards. So both City and Inter Milan, we'll get to that actually when we preview that game. But yeah. Thank you guys. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will react to Bayern Munich being able to get 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits some lucid shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Liverpool defeating AC Milan 3-1 at the San Siro. We move on to discuss Bayern Munich. They were able to get 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb today, or technically we're at 12:04 a.m. my time, Dallas Central Time. So technically it was yesterday, but they were able to get 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb. Harry Kane were able to get 4 goals on the day, 3 of which came from penalties. Rafael Guerreiro, he was able to get on the score sheet. Olise got a brace. Sane was able to get a goal for himself, and Goretzka as well, as they were able to defeat Dinamo Zagreb 9-2 at Allianz Arena. A good display of attacking football. We know under a company they want to play very attack-minded. That's how they're operating. They get their fullbacks forward, the center back split out wide. They get numbers forward with Musiala, Olise, Gnabry, Kane, Guerrero, Davies all joining into attack, and Pavlovic and Kimmich doing that, having a lot of duty, sort of playing that pivot in midfield, having a lot of, duty to do. I do think this Bayern Munich team has their vulnerabilities defensively, not just because of the center back pairing, but because of how open that they are. And if you're playing Kimmich and Pavlovic alone and double pivot, that's not the most defensively solid base for a midfield. And if you can get past that initial high flying press that Bayern Munich have, there's a lot of space to go and attack in behind, and there's some vulnerabilities in behind. But, when you're playing against Dinamo Zagreb and you're doing it at home, you have a little bit of breathing room, a bit of experimenting room. And they were able to dominate a team that they were just flat out far better than. They did concede 2 goals to Dinamo Zagreb, which is expected. Not expected, but, with how open that they play, there was going to be, goals coming. I thought the goal was really bad defensively. The opening goal that Zagreb had, for me, that's unacceptable defending on the back post from Rafael Guerreiro, who in my opinion is one of the reliable defenders in this Bayern Munich team, but just gets caught out, sort of not tracking his man, and sort of daydreaming a little bit. And then I believe it was Petkovic who was able to find space and get it into the back of the net. Again, there was a lot of space in that Bayern back line. They were not compact enough because of how open that they are. And the second goal as well, the ball played in behind, Bayern Munich getting caught out. And it's just defensively, they're really, really open. They are really, really open. That midfield doesn't want to defend. They're players that sort of try to get in the way. I think Pavlovic has a good work rate, but he's more of his ability to play the forward ball. He's in there. We know his qualities he has. Yes, he is a natural right back, but defending has never been really his primary strength. And if you can get past the initial press, there's space to play the ball in behind. Ogiwara, coming from his fullback position, was able to make the run in behind Guerrero, and he, comes up with the nutmeg finished, and suddenly it's 3-2 Dinamo Zagreb, and then, Bayern, and actually, honestly, Dinamo Zagreb, the Bayern Munich went up 3-0, in that first half. They quickly cut it down to 3-2 at the start of the half, and Zagreb had their opportunity, had a few opportunities there, and Bayern Munich were a little bit on the back foot. And it really just shows the vulnerabilities that there was with Bayern Munich. But then on, the quality eventually got through. Bayern Munich pelted them, and then, Harry Kane was able to get the fourth, and then from there on it was going to be smooth sailing because just the quality with Bayern Munich was just far too superior, and it was overall, easy overall game for Bayern. They even had a few opportunities that were called out, or one opportunity that was called out by VAR. Kane was able to get on the back of the net, but that goal ball, VAR ruled it out. He had another rebound, opportunity. But yeah, look, Bayern Munich, they have real quality. Now with Elise coming in, Gnabry sort of back on his form. He's playing really, really well. We know the quality that Jamal Musiala has technically playing in tight spaces. We know what Michael Elise can be. He's a special player with special ability that just needs to, just needs to take the next step at, showing consistency at a big club that he has now the opportunity to do at Bayern Munich. We know the ability he has with his left foot. He's also good in tight spaces. He's creative as well. He's a really, really good quality player in there. Good at, breaking down low blocks because he can make moments out of nothing. We know what Jamal Musiala can do. Harry Kane, we know what he had at the European Championship, the down performance, but he's still a brilliant goal scorer, and he'll take advantage of his opportunities. So the attack has never been my issue with Bayern Munich. I think they'll always be able to score goals. So far this season, they've had a ridiculous goal scoring output. They've put up 9 past Zagreb. They put 6 past Holstein Kiel. They scored 2 against Freiburg, 3 against Wolfsburg. The attack will never be the issue. But an also thing is, they've only, in the 4 games, they've only had 1 clean sheet. The rest of the 3 games, they have conceded. They conceded 2 goals against Wolfsburg that put them in a sort of dangerous position later on to drop points. And then this game, Dinamo Zagreb was able to get, back into it eventually. Bayern just dismantled them. But it just shows that, look, there's a huge quality. But for me, Bayern Munich, when they're going up against the better teams, late stages in this competition, number one, they're just way too open defensively, because with teams like Real Madrid, Manchester City, Barcelona, you get past that. If they're able to get past that initial press for Bayern Munich and be able to attack the space that's left in the defense, to play in behind or to go at the center backs of Kim and Upamecano that can have some bad blunder moments, it could be a real issue for Bayern Munich defensively. And yes, against teams like Zagreb, you can win a basketball game because you just have far better quality than them. But going up against a team that has a little bit more composure defensively, that can defend really well, and that has ability to play out and go end to end with you, but also can defend well, like Barcelona could, like a Real Madrid definitely could, like a Manchester City definitely could, it would put Bayern in a vulnerable position. So something that Vincent and company has to emphasize is getting this defense better. With Hansi Flick at Barcelona, he's able to play a sort of high-intensity style of football, but also they defend really well. And they defended really well at Bayern too under Hansi Flick. Vincent company needs to be able to replicate Hansi Flick's success that he has in terms of how he wants to play, but also being defensively solid. Because if they're just this open, against the better teams, Bayern Munich will get caught out. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll do a full reaction to Real Madrid beating Stuttgart with late goals from Rudiger and Endrick.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Bayern Munich getting 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb. We move on to react to Real Madrid. They were able to get on the right side of the line over Stuttgart in their opening game of their Champions League campaign as defending champions. They took on a Stuttgart team that did really well for themselves to get into the top 4, to get into the Champions League this season. And I have to say, you analyze the performance for Stuttgart relatively to the expectations as well. I thought Stuttgart played a really, really good game. I thought they were able to control possession at certain moments. They created some good opportunities. They had good runs of sustained pressure that they applied on Real Madrid. I thought Real Madrid also, they played a decent game. They played a sort of Real Madrid game that we expect from them under Carlo Ancelotti. We know what they are. They're not a team that'll go in, and maybe we're expecting a little bit this season now with the additions that they've made with Mbappe coming in, but this is not a team like Manchester City that'll go in and just completely dominate and suffocate a team. This is a team that'll be measured in their approach. They'll be defensively solid and sort of work their way up from there. And don't get me wrong, they do have the ability to control games, but it's not to the extent that a team like Manchester City, well, it's just not how Real Madrid go about it. And look, if you watch the game duration, once Real Madrid were able to get that lead early in the second half through Mbappe, who scored his first goal for Real Madrid in the Champions League. And by the way, that goal epitomizes Real Madrid, their ability to play in transition. Sloppy defensive moment from Stuttgart's left back. His name is escaping my mind. Mittelstadt. Sloppy defending from Mittelstadt there. Because the ball played in initially from Jude Bellingham. We know Stuttgart, they're attack minded and they're gonna be willing to play, and that made the game much more appealing as well. And the fact that they were willing to go at Real Madrid, that they were willing, they're playing a back line. Their back line is at the halfway line, and they're willing to press and they're willing to go for it, and it made it a really good game. And look, if you're going to play a high line and you're playing at the Bernabeu, you're playing a high line and you're going to go for it, well, then your defenders, they're going to have to be very, very solid. And in my opinion, it was a poor mistake by Mittelstadt on the ball played in from Bellingham. The ball played in from Bellingham doesn't have, shouldn't be to Mittelstadt. I think Mittelstadt is in a good position defensively, doesn't make a good play on the ball, takes a bad angle. And when you take a bad angle and you have players like Rodrigo, Mbappe, Vinicius that they're defending, well, you're gonna pay the price. Rodrigo was able to get in behind, and then he was able to get in behind. He's able to play a ball to Mbappe, and it's a tap in, and just like that, it's 1-0 Real Madrid. And it just epitomizes Real Madrid. They're defensively very, very solid. And one moment of sloppiness, they will pounce. Mbappe pounced, and it was 1-0 to Real Madrid. And I do have to say, afterwards, Real Madrid did have another opportunity that they could have doubled the lead, Kylian Mbappe. And the next, few minutes or so, Real Madrid were able to create a few opportunities. Vinicius Jr. also hit the post to double the lead. But then Stuttgart started gaining confidence. They started getting numbers forward. And they really, Thibaut Courtois had to make a really good save. with Stuttgart when they had an opportunity on a 2-on-1, and then Stuttgart had and then he had to make another good save from Lowling, who was able to get a strike off, and then eventually Stuttgart was able to get the equalizer. It came from a set piece opportunity. They took advantage of it. The ball gets onto one of the Stuttgart player on the back post, who plays it back in, and then Dennis Undev, who's their striker, their star striker, he's able to get on the end of that cross. It's 1-1, and I thought Stuttgart, they did really well in that, that 10 minutes or so. They applied pressure and they played really well. I thought Stuttgart played a really good game. They were willing to go at it, and I love that when teams are willing to go at it and they don't fear Real Madrid, and they didn't fear Real Madrid. We know what Stuttgart are, or what they're made of, what their DNA is under Sebastian Oeneb, who in my opinion is a really, really good manager, and a manager that will be making the move to a top club soon. And we know what they're about, and they're not going to change their ways, going into the Bernabeu. But eventually, just the quality for Real Madrid was able to see them through. Real Madrid were able to take advantage of a set-piece opportunity on their own. Modric plays it in, and Rudiger gets it to go for 2-1. It's another ball played into the 6-yard area, and the Stuttgart goalkeeper just couldn't get to it with the traffic in there. It's a really hard play to defend. Alexander Nobel just couldn't quite get there. I have sympathy for the goalkeepers, because they put in there's a lot of players in that 6-yard box. It's very congested. It's very hard, but sometimes when you're in a goalkeeper in that situation and the ball gets played in the 6-yard area, you just have to have that sort of mentality. You're gonna go through anyone, and if you have to go through your own player to get that ball, you're gonna go through him. You sort of have to have that killer mentality, sort of having when you are trying to have a sort of command of your 6-yard area. You have to have a commanding presence of yourself, and you have to have that mentality. I'm getting to that ball and I'm going through anyone, whether it's my teammates or a Madrid player, which it's not the best, because you don't want to get a penalty in that area. But if you have to be measured about it as well. But Rudiger is able to get the goal. It's 2-1 for Real Madrid. They take advantage of individual moments, as they always do. Bernabeu's atmosphere was great. They closed it, and it was a good goal. And they played a good game, Real Madrid. They played a Real Madrid game, and then late on they're able to bring on Endrick, and they were able. Actually, Vinicius had an opportunity 1-on-1. He couldn't get it to go. He couldn't get it past Nobel, but it was Endrick. It was actually an initial opportunity from Stuttgart on a set piece. Endrick gets on the end of it, and with the quality and pace that Endrick has, he goes in, and Endrick, it was a little bit of a selfish moment in my opinion, in the fact that there was way better balls to play in. He had Mbappe that he, in my opinion, there was a space between the two Stuttgart defenders. If you have that real quality and that real eye, you can play in Mbappe there. He also had Vinicius coming the other side of him. He decides to to take it on of his left foot from, in my opinion, when you're in a transition moment like that, that's a really bad shot to take, because there's much better opportunity that you can get. He decides to try to go for it on his own. He wants to get that opening goal for Real Madrid in the Champions League. And yeah, it was a strike. It was a strike. The pace that he hit it with, to be able to beat Nobel from there, you need to have it. You need to hit it with really good pace. You need to be accurate as well. But the problem was, in my opinion, Nobel has to do better, despite the ball being hit with real pace. It wasn't really in the corner. Nobel was able to get a hand on it. I think he has to do a little bit better there. But again, this 3-1 Real Madrid. Endrick gets off the mark, and a really good goal for him to get his Champions League career going at Real Madrid. He's a fascinating player, a player that we're all looking forward to see what his development is like. And it's a good moment for him. I believe now this is his second goal for Real Madrid. So great moment for Endrick. And overall, Real Madrid, they played a really, really good game. Very excited. I was very happy with the quality that we saw from the game. And it's a good way for Real Madrid to start their title defense. Real Madrid now, let's pull it up, Espanyol to play with on Saturday, which is not the strongest of opposition, so allowed Real Madrid to go with a full strength team to get off to a great start. Stuttgart, they move on this weekend to take on Borussia Dortmund. We know Dortmund are looking pretty strong so far to start off the season. This is the Stuttgart team that hasn't had the greatest starts, with 4 points in 3 games, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they're able, with the players that they have, how they can manage playing in the Champions League, as well as trying to get back into the top 4 in the Bundesliga. For me, it's gonna be very interesting to see that, and I'm looking forward to see more of them. I love the way that they play. I love the way that they play against Sebastian Reineb, and the way that they went into Bernabeu and wasn't afraid to play their game. They move on in the Champions League campaign. They play Sparta Praha in their next game. Then they take on Juventus, Atlanta, Crvena Zvezda, Young Boys, and then Slovan Bratislava, and then they close out the Champions League campaign with PSG. Not the most difficult campaign for them, so let's see if they're able to at least find themselves in a playoff position, because that's the goal for Stuttgart in this Champions League. As far as Real Madrid, we know the goals with them. We know the dominance with them. Good stuff from them. You don't want to slip up early, because you want to find yourself in a position that you're in the top 8, so you don't have to play a meaningless playoff, not meaningless, but an unnecessary 2 extra games in January. You just want to find yourself straight into the round of 16. So really good stuff for them. Showbreaker coming up. When we come back, we will be previewing Manchester City taking on Inter Milan.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Real Madrid beating Stuttgart with late goals from Rudiger and Endrick. We move on to preview Manchester City taking on Inter Milan tomorrow. This will be a rematch of the Champions League final from the 2021-2022 edition. No, not the 2022-2023 edition, in which Manchester City were able to win 1-0 through the winning goal for Rodri in the final. But this is 2 years later on. Both teams find themselves similar position. Again, this is Inter Milan team on the back of winning Serie A, a really strong team. And then City, the best team in the world, the best quality in the world, the best array of talent, and they're back to playing a really high level football the way that they've started the season. For me, it's not been talked about. With Manchester City, a lot of people have been talking about the financial charges, and rightfully so. There's some serious accusations, 115 charges, and that will always be the big story with City, especially with the hearing just starting on Monday and all. But City have played some brilliant football this season. Erling Haaland, 9 goals in 4 games. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it'll be very interesting to see if Haaland can continue that ridiculous form he's had in the Premier League, and if he can bring that into the Champions League against high-level opposition at the highest level of football. And for me, City, Inter Milan, these are 2 of the top 6-7 teams in football. So it doesn't get much better than this. Two teams with a little bit contrasting styles. I think Manchester City does have more quality and are the favorites in this game with the combination of quality and the fact that they're playing at the Etihad. But for me, I have, with the likes of Lautaro Martinez and the likes of Lautaro Martinez and the crew that Inter Milan have built, in the football that they play with Thuram, Mkhitaryan, Di Marco, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, Darmian. Can they put up, can they go into Manchester City, defend really, really well with the back three, don't give up much spaces, and be able to take advantage of the pace of Lautaro Martinez? He's going to be very pivotal to take advantage of trying to play in behind City, because I do think Inter Milan will not be defensive. That's not really what Inter Milan, they do play back five, but they're not going to go sit in, park the bus or anything, but be compact and play from back to front and take advantage of individual moments going forward, because Inter Milan does have the quality to do that. Now, Inter Milan, they haven't had the most smooth start to the season. They find themselves third in Serie A, obviously. Not the worst start, but they have dropped points in 2 games. They dropped points this past the game to Spezia. No, not Spezia. They dropped points to Monza, and then they dropped points to start off the season against Genoa to 2. But they also had that really good performance before the international window where they were able to get 4 past Atalanta. An Atalanta team, we know it's an elite team. They won the Europa League last season. A little bit injury ravaged that team is this season, but there's still quality that they have. Inter Milan was able to get 4 goals past them and play a really, really good game and be clinical. And that's going to be necessary for Inter Milan in the City game. Another storyline in this game between City and Inter Milan, both of these teams have huge games coming up this weekend, and it's going to be interesting to see how Pep Guardiola and Simone Inzaghi mix and match their players for this game, because City do take on their, the main rival to them winning the Premier League. With respect to Liverpool, despite the loss to Nottingham Forest, I still think they have, real quality and real a chance to be up there. But it's clear that Arsenal, City, those are probably the 2 teams that are going to be added at the end of the season. They've been added at the end of the season for the past few years now. That's a big game for City early on at Etihad. They're already 2 points ahead of City. They're already 2 points ahead of Arsenal, City. They can get that win. They're 5 points ahead with only 4 or 5 games played in the Premier League, or 5 or 6 games played in the Premier League. That's a gap to have this early on, and you're already looking at, Arsenal already being really on the back foot. So obviously the importance is there. As far as Inter Milan, haven't had the greatest starts, and they're going up against it's a Milan derby though. And a Milan derby is always intense going up against AC Milan. Going up against AC Milan that hasn't had the greatest start now, but it is a Milan derby. We know what I said about Inter Milan. They've already dropped points in 2 games this season. They don't want to drop points in a third, and it's going to be high intensity. The rivalry is going to be very fierce going up against Milan. So that's always a big game, even with AC Milan not being what they've been. AC Milan still has quality with Rafael Leao, with Alvaro Morata, with Christian Pulisic to take advantage of an Inter Milan team that's a little fragile. And they'll have an extra day's rest, AC Milan will, because AC Milan played a day earlier. AC Milan played on Tuesday, Inter Milan playing on Wednesday. And Inter Milan having to go to Manchester. AC Milan actually get to stay at the San Siro. They played at the San Siro on Tuesday, and they're staying there to take on Inter. So that, there's going to be some advantage there that for AC Milan. So how do Simone Inzaghi and Pep Guardiola, how do they approach these games? Do they go with a full throttle team and look at it at a 1 game at a time, really start off? Because also these Champions League campaign, these group stage games, they're important even for these big teams. They're important for a team like City and Inter Milan. You don't want to find yourselves in a position that you're playing unnecessary games in January. You want to get into that top 8 so you don't have to play a qualifier to get into the knockout stages. You're already having to play 2 extra games in the Champions League group stages with this new format. it's really unnecessary for them to play another 2. So they want to, take advantage of these opportunities early on. So later on, it's still the group or league phase. You give yourself a little bit of flexibility that you can drop points, but you can still, retain your position in the top 8. So you don't have to play, one of those games. So yeah, I'm very, very fascinated to see how these two managers mix and match. Again, with Manchester City, they just want to continue to do what they're doing. The football that they play under Guardiola, they want to continue going at it. Erling Haaland, he needs to continue his momentum. The interesting thing about Manchester City, I have to say, so far to start off this season, Rodri has not started a game for City this season. After having a really long season last season, not only was he, was very important to City, played in every game for City last season that he was not injured, but also, was part of the team for Real Madrid that went on and won for Spain that won the European Championship later on into the summer. And he's done a good job. Pep Guardiola has done a really good job being able to rest not only him, but a lot of the players that went on a deep run. Him, Phil Foden, Kyle Walker, John Stones. Now, Kyle Walker and John Stones, they started to get introduced back into the City team post-international break. But Rodri and Phil Foden, not necessarily as well. Is this the moment, going up against Inter Milan, to open up your Champions League campaign? Is this the moment that Rodri gets back into it, I would think so, because you don't want to throw him in there for Arsenal, that Arsenal game. You don't want that to be his first sort of, game that he starts this season. You're sort of throwing him into the fire, in which we know that Rodri, he'll be capable of handling that. He's an experienced player. He's a professional. But I have to say, for him to start against Arsenal, I expect him to have some sort of role in this game at Inter Milan, in my opinion. And I do think Guardiola will be playing with fire if he just, sits him out for another week and doesn't play him against Inter Milan or Arsenal. I think you're playing with huge fire. I think Manchester City, they smell blood right now with Arsenal. And the fact that, Arsenal, they have 2 draws. Not 2 draws, they've dropped points already. City have been dominant. You go 5 points up this early on, you really set a tone, and you put Arsenal in a vulnerable position 1 month into the season. And when City smell blood, they will take advantage and they will fire. So I think Pep Guardiola can't underestimate that and needs to go with a full-fledged team. And if that means Rodri needs to be introduced in this game at Inter Milan, I think this is the moment that he gets introduced into the season. He makes, I don't know, has he even made a substitute appearance so far to start off the season? Rodri, yeah, he did. He was able to he got on the field against Bournemouth. But yeah, and Rodri, he said he had a lot of comments saying players are close to strike over too many games. We know Rodri, he was public in terms of publicly said that he needed rest in the middle of their campaign last season. So he's not been afraid to come out and be vocal of the issues that he had amongst him needing rest and how much fixtures there are. So maybe he also has a little bit of a say in wanting to rest a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's time for him to get back. Because look, this was a Rodri, by the way. He's not a 33, 34, 35-year-old. He's not a 21-year-old, but he's 28, the peak of his prime athletically. So, I don't think it's I don't think load managing, if you want to go an American sports term or an NBA sports term, is quite necessary with Rodri. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed Manchester City taking on Inter Milan. We move on to react to some of the top soccer headlines. And we start off with Manchester United. Or no, actually, let's start off with Weston McKennie. He got on the score sheet for Juventus as they were able to get past PSV. 3-1 victory for Juventus. McKennie getting off the mark for Juventus as well. I believe this is his first goal this season. I might need to fact check that. But it's always interesting with Juventus and McKennie. They not pretend, but they don't value him. They're trying to force him out, but eventually he gets back to the club. They write him off, but eventually Juventus sort of take him back last minute, and he comes in, and he happens to be one of their more important players to start off the season. They write him off literally every single year, and then eventually he stays in the team. He works hard, and then he proves his worth. He gets into the starting 11. He's one of the more important players. And everyone is acting like this goal is a surprise because of the way that he's been trying to be forced out. But let's be real. Weston McKennie has been one of the more consistent Juventus performers over the last few years. And I'm not saying that's a high mark, but I think Weston McKennie is a really, really good player. Maybe he's not quite Juventus starting caliber player, but with the quality of players that Juventus have had in the past in terms of midfield, you're talking about a team that had Pavel Nedved, that have Andre Pirlo, they have Paul Pogba. Weston McKennie, he's not that sort of player, but he's still a player that can do the job. He gives you flexibility. He gives you, he can play a little bit more advanced position underneath the striker and find the right, areas in the box, be at the right place at the right time to get goals. He can drive in midfield. He has good work rate. He provides you something defensively. He can play in all the roles in the midfield. Now, he doesn't have the sort of ability that Pirlo will have from playing the sixth position to play in, be a deep line playmaker. That's not Weston McKennie. But overall, he can do a lot of things good. He's a very good player at a lot of things, and he can give you a lot of flexibility in there, and he'll do a lot of different roles. So, yeah, and good win for Juventus starting off their campaign, by the way, as they're able to get past PSV 3-1. Speaking of that, the other early game from this window, Aston Villa were able to get a 3-0 win and in the Champions League, in their opening game of the Champions League, as they were able to get past Young Boy 3-0. Really impressive start for them. For Unai Emery, really impressive start in this Champions League campaign. We know what Unai Emery is in these sort of competitions. He can get the best out of a team. He's a really good cup manager, and it's a good start. Going away to Young Boys, going to Switzerland is never an easy outfit, especially when you're Aston Villa. That's relatively new to the Champions League. A lot of these players don't have much experience in the Champions League, if not any experience in the Champions League. So really good performance for Aston Villa. They played some good football. They created a lot of opportunities. Good start for them. Sporting Lisbon got past Lille 2-0 as well. That was the other game that we did not cover early on. There was actually one heck of a goal. Oh my goodness. Zino De Best was able to get, in my opinion, a really good strike off. Just, you don't hit a ball that true. And this is a Zino De Best, by the way. The strike, it was an absolute sublime. The Belgian center half. That's his first goal ever that he scored in his professional career. And it was an absolute great goal. For his first ever goal, that's a goal. I can not guarantee, but he'll probably never score a goal like that again. I mean, that was just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. And it's going to be a contender for Champions League goal of the season. And it's only, game one. So, that was an absolute great goal. Manchester United, they're able to continue, off the good momentum that they had against Southampton. They carried that into the EFL Cup as they got past Barnsley 7-0. Marcus Rashford, the big storyline here, Marcus Rashford, after scoring against Southampton, we know he's a form player. He's able to get 2 past Barnsley. And I think this is opening up Marcus Rashford for another 6-7 runs of really, really good play. Because that's sort of Marcus Rashford, the player that he is. He has an inconsistent nature to him, but when he's high-flying, when he's playing with confidence, when he's not overthinking things, when he's just playing on natural instinct, he's a really, really good player, and he's a really, really good goal scorer. And the combination of his ability and pace and being at the right place at the right time and his ability to strike a ball, he's a very, very, very good player. But when he's overthinking things, when he's not confident, when he's not at the right, mental frame, he can be a really, really bad player and be almost a disappear. He is a disappearing act. He plays in games and you almost forget that he's playing, and he's not getting into England squads, which a player that his caliber should never be not getting into his national team squad, never. But it just shows the sort of inconsistent nature to him. But look, Erik ten Hag, he might find himself in a position that he's gonna rely on Marcus Rashford and his inconsistent nature to, get on the right side of that for him to be, he might need these next 6-7 months of great Rashford to potentially save his job. That might be necessary. So maybe that's why Erik ten Hag has continued to stick by him, knowing once this bad period passes, there'll be a good period that potentially could save my job. And then on, if there's necessary changes that needs to be made, I'll be able to make those changes. But yeah, it was a good win for Manchester United. Erik ten Hag, he called it the perfect night, saying, I think, not for me, but for the team, this is the perfect night. I think we could do everything that we plan to do. How we win next round, scored some great goals, entertained the fans. We worked on our game model, so we are happy. I know from my first season here that when he scores, then for the team it's more easy. This is speaking about Marcus Rashford, by the way. When you have a player in your squad who is a guarantee for goals, then it can make the difference. You could do a lot of things very well between the boxes, but football matches are decided in the box. He continued on to say, I was not devastated after Liverpool, and I am not celebrating now. It's a never-ending process. I know where I want to go, in which direction. I know we have a lot of speed, dynamic, and we have seen this today, and we have great players capable of dominating possession. We have to work even harder to get all the stages of the game right. That's the key for them. Preston, they were able to upset Fulham in a Carabao Cup. It was a record for a Carabao Cup shootout. Took 32 penalties. 32 penalties were successfully made. That's ridiculous. 32 penalties were successfully made until eventually Castagna, he missed the target, which that's rough. Castagna's being the man to sort of break that ridiculous streak. And then Letson, he took advantage and fired Preston into the 4th round of the EFL Cup. We know Rodri, we spoke a little bit about this, but he said players could strike over too many games, saying players are close to going on strike because of concerns over their increased workload. We know with Spain, with the Champions League increasing to 8 games, potentially 10 group stage games, depending on if you don't make the top 8 or not, and you're still in that playoff position. We know this Club World Cup that a lot of people are not the biggest fan of in the football world in terms of players and managers. This new 32-team Club World Cup that will be played in the summer as well. Rodri speaking, he said, I think we are close to that. when speaking of a strike, it is easy to understand. I think it's something general. I think if you ask any player, he will say the same. It is not the opinion of Rodri or whatever. I think it's the general opinion of the players, and if it keeps this way, there will be a moment where we have no other option. I really think, but let's see. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's something that worries us because we are the guys that suffer. When Rodri was talking about games played, he said, I don't have an exact number. From my experience, I can tell you that 60 to 70 games a season, no. Between 40 or 50 is the amount of games in which a player can perform at the highest level. After that, you drop because it is impossible to stay in the physical level. This year, we can go to 70, maybe 80. I don't know. It depends on how far you go in the competitions. In my humble opinion, I think it is too much. Also, when he was talking about being linked to Real Madrid, he said, there's nothing much to say. I have 3 more years at City. When I signed the contract, I don't think about other teams. There's nothing else I can say. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content updates. Thank you once again and have a wonderful, wonderful day.